Welcome to the Grappling Grappling Rewind Podcast.
Welcome to this week on the Grappling Rewind Podcast. On this week's show, we're going to talk about the ADCC superfight with Andre Galvao's statements and Gordon Ryan going back and forth. Mo Jasam, the coordinator for ADCC 2019 and 2022, has put forth three sort of replacements for who potentially will replace Galvao if Galvao decides to not do the superfight in 2021. So we're going to talk about the lion's share of that today, as there weren't like big events that we're going to recap today. We are also going to preview Quintet Fight Night 6 very briefly, and Fight to Win 166 headlined by, actually, who is it headlined by? I'm not sure if it's headlined by Lovato versus Gabriel Almeida or Josh Cisneros versus Lucas Pinheiro, but as always in the show, I'm your host, Maine, with my co-host,
Emil.
How you doing, Emil?
I'm doing great, man.
A little bit of a disjointed intro there, but I was like, hey, this is not a standard show. Again, we are doing it remote until everything in Maryland gets a little more normal, and then we'll be back in person. So the audio is going to take a small hit. I'm going to do the best with what I can, but we got some fun stuff to talk about this week.
Yeah, absolutely, and we're sort of like in perennial ADCC season now. Like we're not that far off from the trials, and obviously there was a lot of action that went on with a couple of the guys that were slated for the super fight.
A couple of the guys. Gordon slapped Galvao in the face, and then Galvao made a big announcement. If you haven't seen that, I don't mind to say, Emil and I aren't big fans of the drama. That happened last week. You can hear, I think Josh and I talked about it last week, kind of what it went down. Galvao gave a statement that was like, yeah, we were kind of both in the wrong there. I want to be an example to my community and move forward past this. 50% off Atos online. That it happened. My bad. And that was really the statement. Honestly, I thought it was very tactfully done. And like, if you're going to go like, it was like a very honest response to like, yeah, I made a mistake. Like it happened.
Yeah. So then walk me through what happened after that. So Mo then solicited ideas for the
not
matchup?
Solicited ideas. He put forth three names. So let's go right into it. There is no news this week. That was the news. Andre Galvao's response to the scuffle that him and Gordon Ryan had. If you don't know, Gordon Ryan is the ADCC 2019 absolute champion and under 99 kilogram champion. Typically, when someone wins the absolute title in ADCC, they go on and face the previous absolute winner from 2 years before. For the last 8 years, that's been Andre Galvao, because he keeps winning. He keeps defending his essentially absolute super fight title. Was that clear, Emil? Does that make sense?
Yeah, a little bit. So basically, yeah, there's someone who holds the lineal title of absolute, and that's currently Andre Galvao.
It's been Galvao for a long time.
Yeah, for 4 super fights.
So Gordon and him were slated to fight, but maybe Galvao was going to retire. Like before going into 2019 fight that Galvao had with Felipe Pena at ADCC, he was like, this is my last fight. Like, I'm done. Because he's 40-something. He has a gym, he has an affiliation. And at the event, they talked, and he was like, oh, I'm going to do one more. But after the high of winning, and then so it's come to, and there's a big question of, Andre's done. He said he was done before. Is he actually done, and are we going to look for a replacement, or is he going to come back and defend against Gordon Ryan? And there's been a scuffle back and forth. It was Gordon wants to fight him, and Galvao is not too hot to fight him for the current amount of money, is really what it comes down to.
Yeah, I think the last thing that I remember happening, and this could have been like a year ago, was basically Gordon being like, let's do it, and Galvao was like, I want $1 million or something. Like
pretty much. Yeah, that was about 2 weeks ago, and I think he's done that a couple of times.
He's done it a couple. Yeah. So it's like, okay, is that a realistic amount of money for a jiu-jitsu event?
Well, Mo Jasam, the promoter for ADC, went, no, that's not how much money the entire event makes. Like, right. You can't do that. It cannot be done for this fight to happen. He goes, I want to see the fight happen more than anyone. And Mo's put on plenty of fights and been a backer for plenty of fights and cards. Like, he's a guy that'll put his money where his mouth is in a big way. And he's like, we can't do that. So,
yeah, it's not a thing. That's a way of saying I don't want to do it. I understand, like, Galvao does have, doesn't, as a career, as a legacy, he doesn't really have anything to prove. Like,
no, he's beat everyone. He's done it all.
Yeah, he's done it all. So I get it. Like, he has a very successful, arguably the most successful gym currently in terms of a stable of fighters. Like, yeah, I can't think of another gym that I would pit against Atos.
No, at all. Like
fighter
as
for fighter.
a fighter for fighter and like an aggregate, and even they're going back and forth with the DDS guys when there's a big rivalry there, which is honestly kind of fun to watch because they're the two top camps in the world that put the best fighters out. So that is all the drama. What has come out of this? Or continue.
So yeah, basically, like, I could see Galvao stepping down. That's totally visible. I remember when we were at ADCC 2019, after Gordon won, like, I remember him and Andre talking.
Mm-hmm.
Like both of them were smiling. They were talking. I remember that moment and being like, oh, this might actually happen.
Yeah.
And
at that moment, I think Andre agreed to it. Like, he was off the high of the victory over Pena. Right. Like, he showed up after 2 years hadn't competed in 2 years.
I think he said something like, we'll see. Or, I don't think he gave middle answer. But it was a good exchange between guys who had historically had some friction.
Yeah. And honestly, these guys have gone back and forth over the years with kind of stuff like this. It kind of came to a head 2 weeks ago, but they got into it a couple of years ago, and then there was a picture of them in ADCC at West Coast Trials together. Like, it goes back and forth. They're selling the fight. So on the off chance, or the realistic chance, that Andre decides no mas, he's done, he's retired, he's not going to defend the belt, Mo has put out 3 replacement possibilities now, and again, they could change. Felipe Pena, Marcus Almeida Buchecha, and Fabricio Werdum. We're going to talk about in the beginning of the show here. We have no news, so we're already rid of the show.
There is only one matchup there that I want to see.
That's reasonable. So we'll talk about that, but we got to lead into, like, I want to go through a little bit of, like, the history of the super fight first to kind of explain, like, Andre, like, it's not super unusual. Well, it's also not super unusual to have the guy that has the title not defend the title. Like, Andre is the dude that's defended it the most times and not, like, popped out and had someone else replace him. Like, it's not super unusual to have a guy not defend the ADCC Superfight title. Flow Grappling has an article from, like, before ADCC 2019. It was written, like, 2017. And it basically, it's a brief history of ADC Superfight, a look ahead to 2019, and it basically goes through that the first Superfight was defended by Mario Sperry, who won the Absolute Division, and then it goes through all of the champions, and eventually, and it shows you all the points that, like, the guy just didn't decide to defend, and they made another Superfight. So it's not uncommon for this to happen. Andre's just been the guy for the past 8 years, for the majority of time that has been around, defending it, really. And that's a TLDR for what I was going to recap, but it's not unusual to replace the guy, and I want to talk about the replacements. Maybe anything else to add on the history there, or, like, No,
as you said, like, it wasn't defended for a while, so really up until 2009, it looks like basically Jacare fought Robert Drysdale in 2009 to win it, which is just batshit insane because, like, Jacare is he was fighting at, like, 185 or something back then.
I guess he fights in the UFC. I want to say he was smaller than that. 2009, he still was probably middleweight back then. Yeah, he was still middleweight. He was 170.
So Souza, perennially one of the guys who can punch up. One of the reasons why I love him. We're going
to talk about Werdum. If you've never seen Jacare Souza versus Werdum, it was their last match in the gi ever, both of them. Go back and watch that match. Sorry to cut you off, but, like,
oh, good. Yeah.
History match. We're going to talk about both guys today a little bit. Go back and watch that match if you know. I think 1999 Mundials. Go watch it.
So then Jacare loses the title to Braulio Estima in 2011, and then Braulio Estima in 2013 loses it to Andre Galvao. Andre goes on to defeat Cyborg, or he defeats, obviously, Braulio, then he defeats Cyborg, then he defeats Claudio Calasanz, and then he defeats Felipe Pena.
Yeah, in this most recent one in 2019. So
tremendous run, and the first bout of consistency in terms of the lineal defender, champion defending multiple times in a row.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it goes. It is the lineal absolute champion belt, and so that's the way to think about it. It is a cool way to punctuate ADCC. It's a nice way to end it with a single sort of big showcase match. In terms of the weight that I personally give it, and this is an Emil thing, I don't consider it like, I don't put it on the same level as obviously like winning a division. Like if you can go through a division in ADCC, I don't care if you've won it before. Just because you've won ADCC before, it's such a competitive tournament. It's the most competitive tournament. There is no guarantee that the next ADCC, that's 2 years down the road, you're going to win it again. So,
and that's kind of what Gordon Ryan talked about in going into this ADCC. Well, let's talk about that now. Gordon Ryan has asked to be able to defend both his division and the absolute title, and he's even talked about like doing the super fight and then both of those. And there were, I think Mo said we'll see. So Gordon's even talked about how winning a super fight is completely different and he said easier than winning an ADCC division. That he wants that challenge and wants to come back in, and like that's crazy because again, ADCC is the hardest tournament that exists in our sport, bar none.
That is absolutely true in terms of it being profoundly ambitious. I don't doubt that in that moment, Gordon Ryan had every intent of doing it. We've seen Gordon sort of make claims and then walk them back at least twice now, because I'm thinking about him claiming that he was going to compete in the gi and then also claiming that he was going to compete in MMA. So I don't anticipate, we'll see obviously as ADCC comes up whether or not he will go through with all of that. Maybe he'll do one of the divisions.
I mean, he even talked about doing trials. He was like, I want to take a trial spot from someone. I'm like, God damn, you're a gangster about that.
That is hateful.
That is hateful, because that's funny because the second place guy is going to get the invite.
That's hateful. That's just...
Look, man. Anything that gets the guy, honestly, what I do love about ADCC is that theoretically, because the trial system exists, any person that's good enough can go in and compete against Gordon Ryan, Felipe Pena, Cyborg.
Yeah.
You can get Nicky Rod.
You get Nicky Rod. You could get Mason Fowler.
Yeah. You can get Craig Jones. Craig Jones was that. Jones. That's what Lachlan Giles. All those guys coming in as trials winners or trials and then invites. Right. And then showing up and just putting on an outstanding performance that cements those guys as BJJ royalty and stars and top practitioners.
Even Krelliston, who unfortunately was not able to. But that's exciting. That's dope. Yeah. It's great to see these guys just be like, yeah, I'm going to prove it. I don't have a commodity name, but I will show the world. And then suddenly you
can make a name in 3 days. You win trials, you win day 1, you win day 2. You are a household BJJ name. And we've seen it time and time again.
If you do it right, you can make a name for yourself with a consolation prize, like Lachlan did, right? It's absolutely possible. So anyway, long story short, we'll see where Gordon is when we actually get there. Honestly, if I had to pick between seeing him in a super fight or him in a division, I want him in the division.
I kind of want him in the division too. I want to see it again, because I think that we're gonna see. We're gonna see all the guys that want to fight him get a chance to fight him, and that's cool to me. That's a cool thing. I want to, because dude shows up to ADCC. Props to him. So
dude shows up he is unbelievably good. He's just incredibly good, and there's fewer and fewer moments now as Gordon has become probably, I'm not going to lie, the biggest single draw in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or submission grappling. As he gets this big, it's hard to incentivize tournaments for him. There's fewer and fewer tournaments that we're going to be seeing Gordon in. And so I want to see him do it as long as he's willing to do it, and this is this is one of the ones that is worth his time. So yeah, I hope he sticks around in the division. That would be dope.
So let's talk about the three replacements. Unless you have anything else, let's move into the replacements. And I have an order that I want to do this, and I think you'd be probably in agreement here.
Yeah, you're gonna want to talk about the guys that I don't want to talk about.
Yeah,
because
first.
if we go to the guy that I want to talk about, then there's nothing more to say.
Kind
so
of.
Go ahead.
So my thought is everyone. We want to. Emil and I openly want to see Felipe Pena fight Gordon Ryan again. We want to see it. We openly talked about it. That's like one of 3 or 4 matches that I'm really interested in seeing Gordon fight again. He's lost to him twice. We'll go more into that at the end. That's obviously our pick of who we want to see.
You want to start with Fabricio.
I do want to start with Fabricio because
because he's the least likely to win.
Okay, and so if you look at Fabricio, like, again, I love Werdum. Like, Werdum is one of my favorite heavyweights.
He is the man. He is totally the man. Don't get me wrong. He is fucking former heavyweight champion. Triangled motherfucking Fedor.
Guillotine Kane. He guillotined Kane.
Guillotine Kane.
You can make an argument up until the Stipe fight that he was the greatest heavyweight ever because he had wins over fairly prime Fedor a little bit, and then he had a guillotine win over then prime Kane. Like, he had a win over 2 of the guys that everyone was like, that's the best guy ever, and Werdum had submission wins. Not like bullshit, like, close, like submission wins over both those guys. I love me some Werdum. Werdum is 2-time ADCC champion. He's hilarious. He makes the Werdum face, which I still haven't gotten sick of. I love that face.
He's a gi champion as well.
Mm-hmm. He has that armbar over Vinny. He didn't win the armbar, but the armbar on Vinny Magalhaes that I talk about every 3rd show. At this point, I'm essentially contractually obligated to bring that up every time someone uses that armbar defense.
Yeah. Also, the history of how he got into jiu-jitsu is hilarious. Did you hear about this?
I know it.
Yeah. He, for those of you who are not aware, and correct me if I'm misremembering Maine, but like he got jumped by like his girlfriend's ex, right? Or something like that?
No.
He got beat up.
It was dumber than that. Now I'm blanking.
I thought it was his girlfriend's ex basically jumped him and beat him up. And he, the next day, was like, I need to be able to defend
But he was
myself.
like young. He was like a kid.
Yeah, he was a kid.
Also, I love that his name is Go Horse, which is great too. So Werdum is the man. Yeah, Werdum is the man. Werdum hasn't competed in jiu-jitsu since 2018. And that was a draw against Hulk at the Spider Invitational in Nogi.
Right.
His other match he's done is ADCC in 2011, where he loses to Vinny Magalhaes in the finals, which again, over 99 still, but that was 10 years ago. That was a decade ago. Was the last time that he competed in jiu-jitsu.
The game has changed. Fabricio has changed. And so I don't mean to, I mean no disrespect against him. It's just that like when you go from more or less a decade off of the competitive circuit and you're talking about Gordon fucking Ryan, the pinnacle of no-gi submission grappling, that's you can't expect someone to have a reasonable shot in that matchup.
It's how I make my picks most of the time. It's like guy that had a lot of time off that I haven't seen him forever versus guy I've seen a lot of doing really well. Like I'm usually going to just as a general by the numbers pick, going to choose the guy that's been more frequent competing at a high level. So on top of this, though, the interesting thing is this match was supposed to be made. Emil, do you remember where and when this match was supposed to be made? We previewed this match, and it never happened. This is some TLDR trivia for Grappling Rewind.
Was this the Third Coast?
Nope.
I feel like it was.
No, it wasn't the Third Coast. It might have been announced really briefly for Third Coast, but no, it was never. They faced off.
I don't remember this at all.
This was supposed to be a CJJ combat jiu-jitsu match.
What? Oh my god.
And they faced off, I think, in Monterrey, Mexico. Or like somewhere that one of the events was back in, I think, 2018.
This was like one of Eddie Bravo's CJJs?
Yep. This was one of the original CJJs, and this was a match that was put for a combat jiu-jitsu match when Gordon Ryan was really talking about transitioning into MMA. This was going to be his first foray into sort of the combat jiu-jitsu. He was going to take on then the very I don't know when he lost the title, 2016 to Stipe, something like 2017. But like very shortly after Werdum had lost the title to Stipe, Gordon Ryan was going to take him on in combat jiu-jitsu. Match never happened. That's history. But this is not necessarily a match that neither of them have prepared for before. So that is an interesting, kind of an interesting thought that I remembered prior to the show. I was like, oh yeah, here's some dumb BJJ knowledge that I can pull out and see if Emil also has, not had a life for a couple years.
Do not remember that.
You fill your brain with good information, Emil, not like, oh, this fight was supposed to happen but didn't. So that's sort of our thought on Werdum. I don't think there's a whole lot to say. Like, again, Werdum's a good grappler. I kind of would, I don't really have an interest in seeing it. I understand why. He's a 2-time ADCC champion. His last loss is at ADCC in the finals of over 99, but that was 10 years ago. So let's move on to the next one. I don't think we have anything else to add, Emil, do you?
Nope.
Marcus Almeida Buchecha.
Buchecha, the most accomplished grappler in all of jiu-jitsu.
By the numbers. You're a numbers guy, Emil. By the numbers. Homeboy has beat
just in general,
everyone.
He's beaten everyone. He has a very significant loss to Hodger in a super fight. But for the most part, has just cleaned up everything in the gi. In no gi, it's a little bit different.
He just doesn't do no gi as much. Like he's primarily a gi guy that will then do ADCC.
I'm such an asshole. Buchecha has 2 fucking ADCC championships. So
I wasn't gonna. He hasn't won the absolute, which is the thing that always kind of like holds him.
That's a big one. Is the absolute. He has 2 division wins. I'm assuming
2013, 2017.
Under 99.
Over 99.
Over 99.
Yeah, they're both over 99 kilogram. Dude, Buchecha's giant.
Yeah, but anyway.
2013
Buchecha,
heel hook over Zhao Gabriel Hosha, and then 17 one?
17.
What was the victory in 17? It was I'm looking it up now and I just can't figure it out. It was
ADCC. Here we go. Muhammad Ali. Oh no.
No, he loses. That was absolute. He wins over Orlando Sanchez 3-0 on points. I remember that match.
Right.
And then in 2019, he fought Gordon Ryan in the absolute final, and Gordon Ryan took him to a really close victory via a penalty, I think. It's listed here in BJJ Heroes as penalty, and I forget. I was Matt's side for that, and I forget exactly how he got the penalty. I know it was a lot of Gordon Ryan and butterfly guard.
I remember. That was the excruciating match.
It was a slow match. It was a 40-minute. It was a bit of a long match.
Yeah.
So.
I think he got the stalling penalty and Gordon didn't. Is what happened.
So.
Anyway.
So that's honestly that's the most recent Buchecha match.
That is the most recent Buchecha match. Buchecha is one of the few people who with his legacy, he can basically have my confidence until proven otherwise, right? Like Buchecha is the gold standard until I see otherwise. And Buchecha is also the kind of guy who you'd see compete maybe twice a year, 3 times a year.
He's a special super fight and ADCC guy. And then maybe he'll do something else, like occasionally a BJJ Stars or occasionally like a Gracie Challenge. Like he'll do one here and there, but he's been a black belt for 10 years. He has more titles than anyone ever by far. And he just doesn't seem to want to do when you've
he doesn't need to.
But that's what I'm saying. He doesn't need to do it anymore, and he doesn't. Which is again unfortunate because I'd love to see him.
Consistent either, He shows up, he whoops ass, and then even when you think you're beating him, he then comes out and beats you at the end, right?
What's up the Max Domeno's match?
So this is a long. I would be okay with Buchecha.
I would too. I just don't want to see it again because I don't know if it'll go any different. And that's my concern because Buchecha is such a smart guy.
he is, and Gordon is too.
Yeah.
Gordon is like, Buchecha is profoundly tactical, and more than just about anyone, like Buchecha knows, like the Buchecha that, like how he grapples now, he knows exactly what he needs to do in order to get the win, and we're very unlikely to see him stray from that, right? Like,
yeah. He's not a guy that is ever gonna open up or ever gonna like flash or ever gonna like unless it is absolutely necessary, and that is his only option. But he's such a good grappler that is most likely not gonna be ever his only option. I also don't think the style matchup of the dynamic for both those guys has significantly changed since 2019. Again, we don't have any new footage for Buchecha. Also, Buchecha's going into MMA. Like
Do you remember? I'm just remembering that match, the Buchecha Gordon match. Do you remember when Buchecha tried to throw up a heel hook and Gordon just started laughing?
And then the arena, and then Buchecha laughed.
Buchecha just shrugged. He's like, "What do you want me to do?" Like, that was a great moment.
That was still the great moment because they both laughed with it wasn't even attitudes with each other. Both like, haha, like I'm not gonna do that. You know I'm not gonna do that. I know I'm not gonna do that. But I went for it just so you know I would do it. And that was just it was a very funny moment in ADCC when Buchecha laughed at him going for a heel hook on Gordon Ryan and then got back into the guard and was like, I'm actually not going to do that.
Yeah.
I don't think the dynamic, for me, by the numbers, this is an absolutely very reasonable match to make with Buchecha going over to MMA, committing less to grappling, and the dynamic of the first match. Like, the first match, although it was very, very tepid, like not a whole lot happened in that match, there's nothing more that I'm really interested in learning about that dynamic that I think I will learn in a second time.
I don't see it going significantly
I will
differently.
happily see it again because it is two of the highest level guys ever in grappling going at it. I think it's a very reasonable matchup from that perspective. I just don't think it's going to be hot fire like the Pena match potentially will.
Let's fucking talk about Pena then. All right.
So Felipe Pena, if you want to go to the history, or we do go to the history?
Yeah, could do it.
Right,
Get into it.
So Felipe Pena, the only dude to ever beat Gordon Ryan twice, and he beat him, Emil. He beat him at a Studio 540 super fight that Mo put on in 2016. It was a no time limit match, and he got his back off of a heel hook attempt from Gordon back when he was the heel hook guy, and he choked him. And it was fucking crazy, and everyone lost their mind. That was actually pre-Grappling Rewind. I'm actually looking at his record here, trying to find it now. Was that 2016?
I think so.
Yeah, here it is. 2016, Studio 540 Super Fight, Absolute. And then they fought again in ADCC 2017 in the Absolute. And, I'm looking for an L, and there's not an L because he beat him. What the fuck was it? I think it was finals. It was finals, right?
Yeah, it was absolute finals.
In the ADCC finals, Gordon Ryan, he beat him by points.
Yep.
And so he has two wins.
I recall that being like a handy, like Pena handily beat him.
Yeah, like Pena's really, really fucking good. Crazy good.
Yep.
So Gordon wants that match back. Gordon's wanted that match back. That match has been booked at least once for Third Coast Grappling. It has been booked for BJJ, ACBJJ, or was it BJJ Bet or BJJ Stars or Kasai? Like, I think a couple organizations have booked it. I remember the Third Coast Grappling poster vividly in my head.
It makes total sense. Like, that's one of the few, that is, for me, the top Gordon match that I want to see.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Because that's honestly, that's a match that Gordon wants back. Like, that's one and that's one of the few matches. Like, he wants the Andre match because Andre's the champion, and there's the history behind there.
But like Pena has actual history on Gordon Ryan.
They fought before, and
twice.
Gordon's beat him. I'm sorry, Pena's beat him twice.
And one of those is in Gordon's favored format.
Yeah.
Right. So,
which I don't think he has another black belt loss in that format.
Dude, his loss, he has how many fucking He has like what, 4 losses?
Something like that. He has the Tex Johnson loss at Grappling Industries.
He's got 2 to Pena, and then he has
the.
He has another one too. I'm trying to remember.
I just had it in my head a second ago, and now I'm blanking on it. I'm gonna get it. It wasn't he beat João Gabriel Rocha, and that was a very, very close match. He has a Leandro Low loss, I think, at ADCC trials like 2015, I think.
That's what it is. Yep. Yeah.
I hate that I know the records that well at this point. I have Pena's record. I'm like, I'll just remember Gordon Ryan's record offhand. But he's avenged the Low match. He's avenged the Tex Johnson match. He has the Vinny Magalhães match is just weird because that was ACB JJ, and that was like a 5-round or 3-round thing that Vinny Magalhães. It was I think Vinny beat him on points, but like it was the ACB JJ points between the rounds, like, and it was a very tactical match from Vinny. It was just Vinny played it very, very smart and used veteran savvy there, and it was like kind of a weird match. And then he also has amazing footlock defense, and specifically footlock offense for the way that Gordon does it. Well,
does he?
He does, and honestly, there's a whole BJJ scout study on that match and what he does to counter Gordon Ryan's leg lock. Craig Jones doesn't do it like that.
Dog. His legs, he got fucking spaghettified.
He did get spaghettified. But if you go look at Vinny Magalhães historically, amazing leg lock defense.
And in the ADCC and no-gi format too, he's brilliant.
He's crazy. He's crazy good. He's amazing.
And obviously, he won. So see, that says everything. But anyway, point is,
the Pena match is the match to make. The Pena is the one to make. And honestly, Pena, if Galvao retires, Pena's the last guy to fight for the super fight. He's the previous victor over Gordon Ryan in ADCC in the Absolute at 2017. They have history. Like, that is the fight to make.
Yep.
In ADCC rule set, I want to see it's a rematch, which ADCC doesn't do unless it's really big and really important. I think this one takes the cake for that. It's the match everyone wants to see. It's the rule set everyone wants it to see.
Because, like, twice over, you know, I am Galvao is the fucking man. I don't think Pena was at 100% in that.
Well, he talked about like he
talked about being sick, but even still, he got double legged into the fucking like next dimension
and into the table,
slammed his ribs, like clearly bruised or even broke a rib. I mean, like you could just fucking see it. So I want to see Pena at 100%, either against Galvao or Gordon. I'd be happy with either. That would be dope.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to see Galvao versus Pena, like, there's 5 matches. They've gone together 5 times. Like, it's good. It's a great rivalry. All the matches are pretty good. But yeah, TLDR. That's the match I want to see. I want to see the Felipe Pena match versus Gordon. I think that is an outstanding replacement if they are going to replace Galvao. If Galvao doesn't want to have the fight, which again is very reasonable. So. Again, there's so many reasons to make this fight. It's the fight to make. And then in 2 years, we'll see again if Gordon wants to defend or if Pena wants to defend or whoever they put into this spot for the super fight wants to defend again and we can have this. I honestly really hope they let Gordon do his division. Like, I would be super amped for that and then do the super fight. Like, I would love to see that. It's super gangster and ADCC is such a hard event to win and do well in. It is kind of, I'm not going to use the word unfortunate, but it sucks when you have a guy that can win the absolute, then you don't get to see him in the tournament next year. Like, I get the super fight's great and it's a really cool thing, but for me, so much changes in the athletes in 2 years that the match, like the dynamic of the matchup at the time that they win the absolute is so much different 2 years later. I also appreciate
it's a super fight.
Yeah,
it's a super fight. You know, you get to see them in 4 fucking matches. You know, in a division. So
and then you're tired and you're getting beat up day 1. You're cutting weight for day 2. You're cutting weight for day 1.
You also you're fucking trying to, if you can, shred through people early on. Mm-hmm. You know, like.
Yeah, you don't want to go 15 minutes to decision or 20 minutes to decision in round one, where it's like, I don't want to fight Muhammad Ali for 20 minutes. Why? Because I don't want to fight Muhammad Ali. Just saying. So yeah, that's the match. That's the dynamic of the match. Amped for it. Go watch the first one. Go watch the second one. Weigh in. Let us know what you think about, who you want to see in the super fight, or someone else we haven't talked about. You can hit us up on Grappling Rewind on Instagram or everything else. I never really plug a lot of the social media we have for the show. Please follow us on the social media if you do not, and share the show with your friends. It is, or like the people at your gym or your gym chat. That is the best way you can help us. We never ask for like donations or money. That is the way you can help the Grappling Rewind. We very much appreciate that when that happens, because that's how we grow, and that's how we are able to do more cool stuff with a bigger listening audience. So that's all I got for that, Emil. Any other closing thoughts for either ADCC, the Superfight replacement, any of the 5 guys we talked about?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's move into the recap. Not the recap section. Let's move into the
preview.
There's no recap this week. Let's move into the preview section. Do you want to start with Quintet Fight Night 6, or do you want to start with Fight to Win 166?
Fight to Win 166.
So, Fight to Win 166, 2 big matchups that I want to talk about here. We have the number 2 featherweight in the world, Josh Cisneros, taking on the number 1 roosterweight in the world, Lucas Pinheiro. Asked Lucas Pinheiro if this was gi or no gi. He was like, I don't know. I should ask. So, I don't know what it is. I think Josh Cisneros is ranked number 2 in the gi, so I would assume it is a gi matchup. This is a huge weight difference at roosterweight and at featherweight. And this is a match absolutely when it got made, I was like, oh, that's an amazing match. That's a match that I'm super amped to see in preview.
Both of those guys are very scrappy, and we've seen both of them have that championship level caliber where they can just fucking turn it on.
Mm-hmm.
It's Josh obviously making a huge name for himself, taking
winning
out
no
Joao.
gi pans 2 weeks into having black belt.
Yeah,
2 weeks.
And he won the gi pans.
Sorry,
right?
gi pan, not no gi pans. I'm looking at Lucas's record here for BJJ Heroes, and I have it's no gi pans.
Just erupting on the scene. Maine and I love Josh for his teepee choke. We talk about his where he was a purple belt in Fight to Win. One of the best, probably the best submission that year. Definitely seared his name into our brains. And it's great to have seen him flourish as a grappler. He fucking brings the heat. He is a fucking pressure jiu-jitsu player, abso-fucking-lutely.
And he's a submission. He's a submission hunter. What I love about Cisneros' game particularly is that he's a guy, even to his own detriment, that will continue to fight and push the action and push the pace and try to get what he wants to do and try to submit you. He's a guy that I love watching compete because he is fun. He's legitimately fun to watch compete because he's not just going to sit on an ad or sit on a point or sit on an advantage. He's going to continue to push you. And that's it's such a rare trait nowadays, especially for top level guys, to have him do that and then still find top level success is just really, really cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Cisneros has been active on Fight to... Oh, sorry, you continue, then I'll talk about the next one.
No, that's it.
Cisneros, you go.
Go for it.
Cisneros has been active on Fight to Win, and so has Pinheiro. He beat Joao Miao, ref decision, Fight to Win 128. He lost to Shamir Chantre via heel hook at Fight to Win 133, and then loses to Acasio, but via referee's decision, which I think it's very funny that Shamir was able to catch him, but Acasio was not able to catch him. And I think that was for the bantamweight title. I assume that this one is a number 1 contender for one of the titles. I assume that Pinheiro is going up to featherweight for this because I do not think Cisneros can probably cut any down below featherweight or even light feather. Again, I know he's a taller guy, so I would assume that this is a close number 1 contender fight for the featherweight title, which is very reasonable given Pinheiro's run and given Cisneros' run. And then Pinheiro has another win over Vicky Sains at referee's decision at Fight to Win 151, and then he's been on a tear since then and doesn't have a single loss since the Acasio match, winning the Houston Open, the Pan Ams, the Grand Slam in Miami, the Brazilian National Pro. He's been going. And so this is a really, really fun matchup. I'm curious to see where Cisneros decides to have this match, because I'm guessing both guys are going to pull, and I think that Cisneros is probably going to be on top trying to pass, but I don't know.
Yep. Yeah, I'm not sure either. You know, definitely at this weight category, I mean, we can expect double guard play.
Yeah,
absolutely. You know,
every time I think about
feeling
Pinero's game, I just think about him throwing me on my head over and over and over and over again when I rolled with him in, was it Dallas?
ADCC. Oh, no, it was Dallas.
It was Dallas at the Kasai Open, Matt. I just think about, man, he beat my ass like the nicest way possible. And it's just like, that's in my head, that is his game. Even though, like, watching him and covering him, like, that's not his game at all. He just decided to do that to me today.
Yep. So yeah, I see double guard play here. I definitely see that.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if Cisneros can pass Pinero's guard, and then we know Pinero is also super scrappy from the bottom, so like what he's going to do to recover. Also, how he's going to deal with the weight discrepancy, because I'm very curious to see if Cisneros, is that something Cisneros is able to lean into, or if Pinero probably trains with people that size all the time. He's probably very, very used to that, but I'm curious to see if Cisneros can leverage that at all, having slightly longer arms and more like, if he can use more outside passing, potentially a double guard pull, if he does decide to stand, or if it's just going to be a berimbolo party from both of them. You know, I don't know. It's a super exciting match. This will determine, you know, most likely determine a title and fight to win, probably at featherweight, and I'm absolutely excited for it. It should be a lot of fun. Anything else on that?
Nope.
All right, also on this card, we have Rafael Lovato Jr. taking on Gabriel Almeida. This is a really good match. This is the kind of match that I want to see Lovato in more so than like Hulk and like versus a lot of the just like the crush you guys at the top.
Yeah. Yep.
Like Gabriel Almeida is still very, very accomplished, very, very good. But he's historically been a little weak to footlocks, which I don't think Lovato is going to go for. Like, that is just not Lovato's style. He is a very pressure-heavy, try to, like, grind you into the mat and shoulder pressure you. So, I think the dynamic of the match will be a lot of that. Just really who can get on top and who can maintain top position for longer.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I think Lovato was given a lot of the like current champions, and that's a huge, we talked about earlier this session, even like there's a big difference when you take a lot of time off, both in terms of the game overall and also just like, if you're older, competing against some of these like early 20s black belts is brutal. I agree. I'm way excited for this. It'll be good to see Lovato like establish his game, and because as you said, like it's the strategy that people have used against him effectively the past couple of matches have been just completely nullifying and shutting it down. Mm-hmm. And so definitely want to see that open up. His guard game is fucking so entertaining to watch. We didn't get this happen a lot, especially in the Hulk match. We didn't get to see it develop.
Yeah, Hulk just kind of decided that we weren't going to do that, and which is, again, you don't want to let Lovato open up, and that's what he did. For some reason, I feel like Almeida's going to come in here, and just because what we've seen of him in like Subversive and at the Third Coast events, like he will play guys' games with them a little bit. He's still going to like act, what all the top level guys do, actively impose and, look to take the match where he wants to do. But he will give you a little bit of setup time in there. And I'm curious to see, I'm assuming this is in the gi. I could be incorrect about that. Lovato talked about wanting to compete in the gi more. So I assume this is in the gi. Again, Lovato's done both. Gabriel Almeida's done both. So, but I foresee this being in the gi. I do kind of want to give the edge to Almeida here, but this is a match that I could definitely see Lovato like getting into a stride, putting him on the bottom, and then doing what Lovato does and just pressure, and then minute left, go for the arm. That's,
Yep.
that's sort of the Lovato staple, especially in fight to win. But this is, again, another match I could see Gabriel doing a very, very similar thing here. That's kind of what excites me, because I think both guys are going to be looking to finish here. So, like, the dynamic of the matchup is fun. Like, no, I don't think either guy's just going to rest in the guard or rest in side control. I think both these guys have the ability to pass either one's guard, which is very, very exciting because I think it's going to force them to both do jiu-jitsu, and we're going to see that. So, should be a really, really fun matchup. Emil, any other kind of, like, notes on that?
No, I think that's really on point.
We have, also on the card, we have Alexander Sassone versus James Popolo as well on the card. That should be another fun matchup. Also, I meant to mention in the news section, Emerald City Invitational has also come out, and they have a bunch of fun guys that have been announced for that, and I've just had it up, and now it's gone. Let me try to find it for 2 seconds, Emil.
Sure.
It's a $5,000 cash prize. Right now, for names on it, we have, it's a 170 event. We have Ethan Krellenstun, we have Jonathan Gracie, we have Nick Ronan, we have Aaron Harris, and we also have a super fight matchup between none other than Lucas Pinheiro and John Calistine, who we haven't seen in a while. Also in the 170 bracket, we have Kim Terra, John Combs, and PJ Barch. So April 10th, that's again a little more than a month away, but
ton of great talent there, yeah.
Very, very excited. I'm happy it's on Flow because I can like watch it. It's super simple. But yeah, Emerald City Invitational is being put on. First event that they've run. Very, very excited for those names being announced this week. Let's move on to Quintet Fight Night 6. This is another women's quintet. Has some super fight matchups on it. We have a super fight between Daisuke Nakamura and Tomogishi Shera. I'm gonna mess up his name. I'm gonna get his name right, because I always mess up Sarah's name. Tomoshige Sarah. God, I hope that wasn't just a butchering of his name. Should be a fun match. Daisuke, I think, just had a win in 1FC, or just had a fight in Road FC. I think it was 1FC, which is crazy because he's like 40-something.
That's buck wild.
It is buck wild, but that is how the Japanese do. So that should be a fun matchup. I kind of think Tomoshige is going to take that. But again, I think it's actually a judo match. I saw a press release that actually made it look like a judo match.
Awesome.
Which is fun.
I love judo. Yeah.
Yeah, judo's fun as shit. We have, so in the women's event, we have Team Theratex, we have Team Coral Block, we have Team, we have Team Carpe Diem, and then I don't know if we have a fourth team that I can see here. Theratex, Coral Block, Carpe Diem. They listed Team Coral Block twice, so I assume that someone on Instagram, which is where I usually get most of my quintet information, because it's usually in Japanese and I can translate it that way. I think they posted Team Coral Block twice, so we are going to probably see another team come out of there. We also have another special iron match, which I think are like the fun matches between Saku Jr., which might be Sakuraba's kid, I don't know, and Kuzuhiro Suzuki, which I'm not super familiar with either one of those guys, but I'm going to be after this match. We also have a bunch of other opening matches and a couple super fights that are announced for it. Super fun for Quintet. Haven't seen Quintet in a little bit here, so very happy that they're running another all-women's event. Any kind of thoughts you got on Quintet, Emil?
Love the format. Love that they're continuing with these fight nights. Definitely would love to see, like, obviously, when COVID is over, another full-blown quintet. I'm so craving one of those.
Yeah.
So
They're always just crazy. I think the last one we got was the WEC versus Pride versus UFC versus Strikeforce. I think that was the last one we got where Cub Swanson's knee exploded.
Yep.
Super grossly. Because he went the wrong way in the heel hook, and it was like, oh, God, that looks so gross. And then he's since got a win in the UFC. After that.
Hell yeah, Cub.
Yeah, Cub. I'm a huge fan of Cub Swanson. Like, he's been an OG forever. So,
yep.
That's, I think, all I got for the week. I'm trying to look if I have any other news or any other notes for this week's show. That's it. So, what do you got on this week, Emil?
Nothing, man. Same old. I'm just, I'm in the next phase for the vaccine, so I'm just like hoping that that fucking comes along and I can fucking get it, and then maybe start doing jiu-jitsu again.
That would be dope.
That would be dope.
We can train in the basement even after the vaccine.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm doing the same thing. I got a surgery consult Thursday.
Is this for your spine?
This is for the back. I'd be like, all right, doc, let's like open me up. Let's take out the disc. Let's do what we got to do, and let's get me back to doing like.
Are they talking about like fusing it or what?
No, I don't want them to fuse it because that would
Loss of mobility.
Mobility, and I'm 29. Like I do not want to have that limiting of mobility at 29. So it's just like I'm in some pain. That kind of sucks, but I would prefer to not be at fusion at this point in time. I prefer it's just a little micro discectomy, little clip, little stenosis surgery, little open up the spine a little bit, let the nerves pass right through there, the quad equina, and then it's not actually quad equina because it's L5S1, but that's what I'm hoping. We will see. We will see on Thursday. He's gonna go, yeah, no, you're not a candidate for surgery at all, and I'll go, oh, but I've gotten a couple recommendations that are from medical people going, yeah, you should talk to a surgeon 2.5 years in if you're still not getting better and you're doing PT and you're doing these things. Yeah, you maybe should do that so you're not like broken more in your 30s. So that's my week. Other than that, not doing a whole lot else, training at the house, making an effort to eat a little better, eat more fruit.
I'm eating like total trash, dude. It's fucking awful.
Yeah, I had a Taco Bell and Qdoba apocalypse this last week, and I was like, I had an intervention with myself that went like, I gotta eat a little bit better because I have like GI issues, and my body was like, bro, you can't. We don't run on Taco Bell and burritos like 24/7. Like you gotta stop. Even Rachel got upset with me. She's like, you have to eat. You have to stop. So that's been my week. I'm also planning for the wedding. That's been a lot of fun. That may actually happen coming up. So that's exciting. That's like a reality that like, oh, the world might be kind of normal in like a couple months when we do that. So all good things. Any other closing thoughts, Emil? Anything else you got going on?
No, man, that's it.
All right. Well, as always in the show, I'm your host, Maine, and the co-host.
Yo.
We are the Grappling Rewind. We will see you on the mats whenever that is. Stay safe. If you like the show, please consider sharing it on Facebook with the folks at your gym. It's the best way that we grow the show, and we really appreciate it. You can reach out to us on email.
We also have Instagram. We have Facebook. We have Twitter. We have Google+.
Until that shuts down.
We have a website.
If you have an event you would like to have us cover, please let us know. If you have a name, like most people do, and you'd like to have us stop butchering it,
let us know.
Reach out to us. The show is also available on YouTube, Spotify, in addition to iTunes and every other podcast service. We very much appreciate your time, and thank you.